All right. So my first question is, where did you grow up and when did you come to the United States?
Well, I was born in San Jose, Costa Rica, the fourth child, and of a Costa Rican mother and an American father. And when my oldest brother was 13, my father decided that he wanted his children to be educated in the United States. So we all came back. So I was 5 years old when we came to the United States.
Oh, it's nice. It's nice. What was life like where you grew up? How different was it to where you are now?
Well, when I was a little girl in Costa Rica in the 1950s, Costa Rica was a third world, underdeveloped country. Nobody in the United States had ever heard of Costa Rica. Most people in the world had never heard of Costa Rica. It was just a little forgotten part of the world. But for a child growing up, it was paradise.
Ah,
It is a land of eternal spring. The weather is always beautiful. There's no cold, there's no snow. It's not hot. It's 75 degrees average temperature where we were in the central plateau of the country. And it's also the land of the rainforest, so there's beautiful vegetation everywhere. There's gorgeous birds, all different colors. The colors are very bright. I grew up with fruit trees in my backyard. Just go up and pluck a mango, pluck fruit right off the trees. So you're very close to nature, and nature is very kind. And for a child, it was wonderful. You know, we had so much space to play and have fun, and there were horses in the backyard and little monkeys as pets. It was wonderful. And then we came to the United States in November, and it was cold and gray and dreary. We moved to Washington, D.C. area, and we were in an apartment when we first came, and very few trees, certainly no birds, no monkeys, no horses, no beautiful tropical fruit, tropical flowers, no hummingbirds. It was an adjustment.
oh, I see. It must have been. I mean, going from like seeing monkeys all days on trees, like every single day on a tree, to like not seeing any at all must have been a huge adjustment and must have been a really tough one to have to make.
There are no animals anywhere. I mean, some people had pets, we didn't, but no animals, and very little color in the landscape. I mean, we came in November, so by the time spring came, things started to pick up a little bit.
I'd imagine so. That's what happens every year. What did you enjoy as an adolescent?
As an adolescent, I enjoyed school. I loved learning even back then, and I was a cheerleader. I enjoyed gymnastics and dance.
Oh,
I love to read. I love foreign languages. I was a foreign language teacher for many years. And always enjoyed people.
Oh, that's good. That's good. When you arrived in the U.S., what challenges did you and your family face, and how did these challenges shape your identity?
Well, there were a lot of challenges. It's a very different culture. I'll give you some concrete examples. So we came towards the end of November when I was 5 years old, so kindergarten had already started, and I didn't speak English at the time, so my parents decided that I would stay home that year with my mom and try to pick up English a little bit before I started school. So I started school the next year in first grade, and I was very behind. But beyond that, I'll give you some examples of small differences, but that were very confusing for a little child. So, for example, back in those days, we read a book called Reading with Dick and Jane. Dick and Jane and their little sister Sally were all blonde and blue-eyed, and they had orange juice and cereal for breakfast. So I remember one time I raised my hand and I said to the teacher, "Don't they have coffee for breakfast and black beans and rice?" And all the children went, "Oh, children don't drink coffee."
Oh.
And I thought, oh, is that bad? We drink coffee, but of course it was just a little bit of coffee with a whole lot of milk, but that was what we drank in Costa Rica, and nobody died from it. So that was just one small difference. And back when I was a little girl in first grade, the characters in the fairy tales were usually were blonde and fair, and only the witches had black hair. So that upset me very much because, of course, I have black hair. And I kept looking for a little character that looked like me, and finally I found one. Snow White.
Finally.
She was the only one, but it makes a difference to have that kind of mirroring of who you are. So it took me a long time to learn everything, because everything was very different. And probably by 4th grade I had caught up academically. But it was a slow process, and I didn't learn how to read how most children learn how to read, by sounding out words. Because I didn't know the sound of the English language. And in 1st grade, right away, even though I didn't speak English, I had to learn how to read. And they didn't have English as a second language back then. So I just looked at the words as if they were pictures and just memorized the picture. And I knew that this picture meant something you eat that's red, an apple, una manzana. But I didn't know the sound of it. So I learned how to read with my eyes. And that was something that took me a long time to learn how to read and then say the word. So it was a very strange process for me. And I'm just bringing that up because actually there's many ways to learn how to read. So I learned how to read more like a Chinese child would, where they learn the picture, the character. And it doesn't necessarily have a sound associated with it. It has a reality. It has an object reality, but not a sound. Because in Japan, for example, 205 different dialects all use the same writing system.
Wow.
So it's a different way to learn how to read. And it was definitely an adjustment. I spoke Spanish in the home with my mother, so my vocabulary wasn't as good as everybody else's. But by 4th grade, I had caught up. And then later on in life, it was an advantage.
Oh, I'm sure it was. In the workplace, it had to have been. But I thought Costa Rica had English as a second language along with Spanish.
No, not when I was a little girl.
Oh, okay.
Nobody spoke Spanish. And even today, it doesn't have English as a second language, although, of course, everybody studies English in school.
Oh, I see.
But it's not a national or federal language at all. No,
oh, okay.
It's just Spanish.
Oh, that's Panama I was thinking of.
Might be Panama.
I thought it was both of them, actually.
No, not Costa Rica.
Oh, okay. What was the most difficult part about leaving your homeland of Costa Rica, and do you still miss it from time to time?
Oh, yes. Most things that I love come from my first 5 years of life in Costa Rica. For example, my garden is my favorite place to be. My hammock, I love. I have 100 little hummingbird feeders in my yard to try to attract them and other birds, because I miss all of that nature. So I love to be surrounded by nature. So it basically colored all my aesthetic sense, what I find beautiful. And also, the sense of family and extended family was very important.
Indeed.
I love a crowd. I love being with a lot of people. And let me take a drink of water now. I'll think of something else.
All right.
Love of fruit. And there is something that's very important to me that I got from being Costa Rican. And that is coming from a poor country where there isn't a lot of entertainment that you can buy. For example, I didn't have a television when I was a little girl. People make their own entertainment. So, for example, when we would have dinner, after dinner, somebody would pull out the guitar and we would sit at the table and we would sing songs from our country, folk songs. We would turn on the music and we would dance around the house. And we're very comfortable doing that. So we made our own entertainment. We made our own fun. And people are very special and valued. That's what I took away from it. So that human warmth and how you relate to people is very, very important.
Yes, it is.
And the stranger who comes to your house, you offer them always something to drink.
Yes.
And that feeling that respecting the human dignity of the individual was always so important when I was growing up in my family and in most of the families that I knew. So it didn't matter if it was a workman who came to your house or the cousin of the president who came to your house. Everybody was treated as if they were somebody.
Good.
And it was a very warm feeling. And much later in life, when I took my students to visit Costa Rica, when I was a Spanish teacher, they didn't want to leave because it's a very friendly place. and people are interested in you. And it's also, the language is very affectionate, the way that people address each other. Maybe for an American it would sound a little embarrassingly affectionate, but in Costa Rica it's very common. For example, my mother, when she addressed me, she would call me Anita Linda always, which means my pretty Anita, my pretty little Anita. I always thought my name was Anita Linda, but no, my name was Anita, and Linda was the adjective. And she would say, Anita, mi vida, venga acá, Anita, my life, come here. I was her life. I was her tesoro, I was her treasure. I was her corazón, I was her heart. So she used all these affectionate terms, not just with me, of course, with my brothers too, and it was very common to speak that way. So the language itself had a power of almost caressing kindness and lovingness.